tracks on the album every important name in rap, so that his isolation, because of his anti-Semitism and the losing of the contract, all that has been lifted. I'm going to have a hard time reporting that. I'm going to try to do this carefully. I'm going to be like the newsreaders on CNN. This is to warn you that some of the following may be troubling. Okay? On the album's lead single, the album is called Vultures, West raps, "How am I anti-Semitic? I just effed a Jewish bitch." I just thought you'd like.
Is his wife Jewish?
This is what? Yes.
He's married to someone not after Kim.
I really.
So it's either adultery or his wife is Jewish.
I'm not responsible for his lyrics, okay? I'm not responsible at all. But there you go. Kanye West is back. And that says an awful lot for the capitalist system of recapturing and salvaging broken souls. I feel so good about that. So if you want to buy a Kanye West album, you're good for it. December 15th is the 8th day of Hanukkah. December 27th is our next current events. And I'm just going to throw something out right now as a conversation starter. So what do you think about what UPenn did and what Harvard did with regard to the presidents? Any thoughts? Okay, Cindy?
It's just, if it had been any group other than Jews and they said this hate speech, it would have been such a different situation. But somehow the fact that it's the Jews, it's okay. You know, when they said, well, you haven't committed genocide, you know, I don't know. It's so upsetting.
Okay.
And I think the reason the woman from Harvard wasn't fired is so that it wouldn't become a racial incident.
Steve?
Well, I'm a Penn alum, and I don't recognize the school, which was probably 40% Jewish when I was there. And a number of us have been writing all over, and Julie Platt, who everyone knows in LA is a trustee, ever since that Islamic conference. And, I don't know what Roger Waters knows about Islamic literature that would enable him to speak. It was all about anti-Semitism. Some classes were requiring their students to attend. She got rid of that, but would not remove the university's sponsorship of the event. And her remarks the next day were too little, too late. If you're smart enough to be president making $300 million a year, she should have been able to figure it out while she was there. And by the way, the line is not speech or conduct. There is all kinds of speech which by itself is criminal.
And okay, we're not, yeah. I get that. Get that. Any other responses to the fact that the UPenn president was fired and the chairman of the board, Bach or something, resigned, and Julie Platt, who is at this point chair of the Jewish Federations of North America. She's at the top of the Jewish institutional pyramid. She was vice chair, and so she's temporarily chair of UPenn.
She's not. They have a new temporary chair from the medical school as of yesterday afternoon.
Poor Julie. Didn't last long.
He didn't want it.
Okay. And then her son, much more importantly, was a star of a major Hollywood Broadway musical. So, you know,
Parade after, and he was also in Dear Evan Hansen.
Dear Rob, yeah, okay. So, any other comments? You know, first of all, I want to say hello to people because Brad came on, Doris came on, Lauren. It is so good to see you, Dee Dee, Ryan. We have just a nice growing community, and that's very exciting. I like the rest of you guys too, but these are kind of like new people. I'm going to say what I feel because that's what this group allows us to do. I've had it with progressive politics. I just have. And I will remain a left-wing liberal. But boy, do I have a wall on my left side that doesn't admit progressives in. The more time that goes by on Harvard and on UPenn, the more students are coming forward and saying the university has tolerated, well, what's been said, what never would have been tolerated against any other ethnic or whatever group, LGBTQ, African Americans, Hispanics, whatever, certainly Asian, and that the Jewish students on these places have been significantly impacted by politics wrapping their way around the university administration. And the politics tends to be far left progressive. Okay, you may yell at me, and I'm perfectly willing. I'm wearing a vest. It's actually bulletproof. But if you come forward and disagree, I just have had it with that particular community. The fact that they're also leading the way in attacking Israel doesn't make me feel any better. But the progressives in the Democratic Party are leading the way in demonizing Israel. So that's my little diatribe for today. If anyone wants to join me in diatribing or attack me personally and say nasty things about our cat, anything. No? Okay, we're going to let that ride. Doris, I can't hear you, Doris. You're still muted.
Okay.
Oh, got it. Okay.
I missed the first few minutes, but I just wonder what you think about all this pressure on Israel to stop what they're doing. I mean, it's just the world seems to be against them, which is very distressing.
Very distressing. I am, you know, that I humbly don't believe that I have prophetic powers, even though I warned this group over a year ago about Ben Gvir and Smotrich, and I said these were going to become nasty, nasty people in government, and I was totally correct. My second foray into prophecy has fallen flat. So I'm only with a 50-50 record. I prophesied about a month ago that Israel had about 3 months in which you could act militarily before Biden and the American government started turning the screws against Israel, telling them to stop. I was wrong, and I apologize with abject humility, it only took 3 weeks. No, I'm upset. I thought it would actually be a slower process. The US government now is solidly in the position of not only telling Israel that the extent of its military operations must be curtailed, which means that any vain hope that Israel had of totally obliterating Hamas as a political and military force is gone.
So what do they do now?
Next, wait, Doris, my thinking process is very contemplative. Then, for the President of the United States to tell the Prime Minister of Israel, you've got to change your government. This is mildly unusual in international relationships. Governments, especially the big governments, try not to publicly say to the lesser government, get rid of X, Y, and Z in your administration, they're bad people or whatever. But this week, Biden communicated to Bibi that he has to get rid of people in his government, and maybe he has to get rid of himself as well. And may I say that I totally agree with those statements.
Really?
I do.
Oh.
Bibi has to go, and the current governing coalition is radical right-wing bad people. But for Stanley Davids in this humble gathering, I suspect that thousands are listening, on live stream. But, for us here, to say that Bibi should resign and the bad people, the government has to change dramatically, that's one thing. For the President of the United States to say that to the Prime Minister of Israel, my prediction of 3 months down to 3 weeks, and it will not get better. Okay? And we talked about the reasons why this is so. The reasons dealing with African American vote, LGBTQ plus vote, Hispanic vote, all of those votes are turning against Biden because of his support of Israel. And I fully expected, and it happened very fast. Biden's numbers are in the toilet, and he is perfectly willing as a politician to throw part of Israel overboard to get back support from the young people, the African Americans, the Hispanic, and the LGBTQ communities. So we have not only a problem this week, but we have a problem that is going to get worse. Steve.
I have a question. Part of this, because a lot of these progressives had a lot of support among young Jewish people, we obviously failed in educating them. I don't know how or why. I mean, I have some of my own inklings. So we may have lost one generation. What can we do to recover so that in the future, we don't have a generation of Jews with no knowledge of the Middle East, the history, any of this, who can then advocate for themselves on college campuses?
I refuse to be reluctant to answer, so I will answer. And that's fair. I think the students coming out of regular Sunday schools in the Reform movement are barely literate Jewishly. not just a question of Middle East. I mean, that, would that they knew a lot of other stuff and didn't know the Middle East, Dayenu, that would not have been so bad. But they are across the board less than decently educated. The second comment I have to make, Steve, is not as easy. When we say they're not educated, some of us mean they disagree with me. And, well, I'm just saying that what does it mean to educate over a complicated moral, ethical, and geopolitical event? Very tough to do. Very tough to do. The ones that have the best chance are the day school students, always, always, whether it's coming out of Browerman or other days. Pardon?
Milken was excellent.
Milken, whatever it is, those kids have a better shot. Day schools are not growing. The conservative day school movement, the Solomon Schechter movement, is contracting, closing some places. Our trips to Israel have become fantastically expensive and shorter and shorter. In other words, the things that work are being pushed to the wayside. Steve, I don't have an answer. You're right, and it's a shame. But right now, given the structures of our movement, no one is going to break the mold. And I think the mold deserves to be broken. Okay, Herb, Sylvia.
I want to go back to your comments about Biden hollering at Netanyahu. There was an article in the New York Times this week that said and proved that basically Hamas has already won. It doesn't matter how many more civilians die. It doesn't matter how many more Hamas leaders die. They have won the public relations war throughout the world. And even if they manage to get rid of all of the leaders and everything else, they'll just go underground for a little while and then they'll come back. They may not be called Hamas, they may be called something else, but the fact is that they have already won the war, and whatever Israel does isn't going to change that. So maybe it is time to stop killing potentially innocent civilians.
You've really put the thing out there. You've really put the matter out there. The New York Times also reported that Ukraine is losing its battle with Russia.
Yep.
And Ukraine has violently attacked the administration officials who say that. Geopolitics has to be conducted in the real world. Hamas has won the PR battle at the cost of probably all told 20,000 people killed or whatever, 15,000 Palestinians, and et cetera. It's not that Israel isn't doing PR. Is that the message is much more powerful when you show a bombed out hospital and little kids in a what do you call those? The little babies are in, dying. And we've lost. We only had good press when we could show what happened October 7th. We only had good press when October 7th was there. But the moment October 7th was pushed aside as a headline, we just no longer had the steering wheel on PR. And nothing, Israel, by the way, had some really excellent spokespeople. The first few days, CNN, other places, they were doing a great job. But you know what? The better job is the unannotated pictures of suffering. And Israel is the cause of the suffering. I'm going to do something very weird. Stick your face over here. Oh, they can see you there. Oh, I didn't know you were there. This is our friend Gary Regev, who has only been a friend since the 1980s, 1970s. So it's at least 5 years. And she's here with us. She is a citizen of Israel and has come to our house for Kugel. Her husband is Uri Regev, who is one of Israel's most important rabbi, lawyer, spokespeople. Okay, so she's there. Let me keep going. Did I have another hand up? I saw that I did, and then I talked too much. Anyone? Okay, now. Oh, Harv, it was you. Okay.
Yeah, I got a question. What's your view, and especially link it to Jewish tradition, what's your view of the Israelis flooding the tunnels? That's what I want to hear out of you.
So what do you want me to do? Quote a Gemara? I'll quote a Gemara.
If appropriate.
I'll quote a Gemara that says a father is required to teach the child how to have a business to earn a living and how to swim. Okay, maybe that doesn't exactly answer your question, but I just thought that was funny. It's true. It is a Jewish requirement to teach your kids how to swim. So even if you don't keep kosher, if you don't keep Shabbos, you don't keep Yom Kippur, but if you taught your kids how to swim, you're good. Okay. Let me ask the group. Here you are. What do you think? It is true that Israel has indicated that it is beginning to flood some tunnels. It isn't that Israel's out flooding tunnels today, but they've indicated that they're ready to do it and maybe are doing it a little bit. What do you think about that as a military tactic in Gaza? By the way, again, you realize, given what we said about Biden and everyone else, what we said about the others, this is only going to last for another week or two. And Israel is going to be shut down in its offensive activities. So what do you think about flooding tunnels? Steve, quick answer, and let's go to other people.
I think the good thing about it is it's a way to target more of Hamas leaders and strong supporters, because they're not putting the little children down and students and hospital patients in the tunnels.
Okay, thank you for that. Lauren, thank you. Great. Lauren's participating. Yes.
Hello, thank you for having me. Actually, my understanding is that they're not actually flooding tunnels that have people in them. So my understanding is what's happening is that the tunnels that they have already vacated, that they've already found, destroyed, they're just using the flooding to further destroy them so that they can't be used again.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments? We are getting Rochelle Ginsburg. You are here? Wow, I am honored.
Oh my gosh, the famous Mrs. Ginsburg. Hello.
Hi. Whoa. We're going to have to start selling tickets to this class. There's no question. Sandra Dissner, this is really fun. Okay. Time is running out. And as far as I am aware, no one really knows what's in the tunnels or who's in the tunnels or which tunnels. There are hundreds of miles of tunnels. And could some of the tunnels be housing hostages? Yes, that is a possibility. Could some of the tunnels be housing some of the central infrastructure of Hamas and leaders of Hamas? It is indeed possible. Could the flooding of the tunnels inadvertently lead to the death of some hostages? Yes, it could. I am pleased to point out that in Israel, a violent objection to tunnel flooding was raised by the Chevra Haganat HaTeva, the Israeli environmental group, that you may flood the tunnels, but you're ruining the ecology of the area. And I respect that. I find that that's good, but I don't know how dispositive that's going to be. So apparently the IDF has already begun pumping seawater into Hamas tunnels in Gaza. And there we go. A good idea. Just yesterday, I think 10 IDF soldiers were killed in a booby trap left behind by Hamas. That's a heavy loss. Flooding might be beneficial. Any other thoughts on flooding? I did have a feeling about flooding, but this is again because I'm in a strange place here. I am remembering that God used flooding once to try to wipe out an evil generation. And I am wondering whether God might be ramping up to try it again, because we are doing a hell of a lousy job of creating and defending civilization. And not just we, Jews, we as people. Now, Lauren, yes, please.
I was hoping to just go back to the comment on the president real quick.
Oh, yes.
Only because I've been following some Israeli, young people, I'd say in their 30s or maybe early 40s,
Excuse
on social media.
In their 30s and 40s, we call them children. Please
children,
go ahead.
As I said, children, who they are very clear, knowing that Biden's doing what he's doing because it's an election, and they don't care. They say, we're going to do what we do, and they've been pretty strong in their assertions that they're not going to let the US stop them. Now, they're not the government, but the people, some of them are soldiers and some of them are just regular, everyday activists and things. They feel very strongly that they don't care what Biden says.
I'm all for bravado. This is Hanukkah after all. Maccabees. If the United States decides that Israel has to stop, Israel will stop. It will have to stop, no matter what the people of Israel feel or believe, because Israel runs out of simple things like tank shells, which Biden just sent over. I saw him carrying it like Santa Claus sack on Christmas Eve, a big batch of tank shells. All that the United States has to do is cut off the weapons pipeline, and it's over. And so we can be brave and say, we're not going to let you push us around. But guess what? 9 million people, 330 million people. If the United States decides to push, we may not like it, but the United States will push. And Israel will have to yield and then swallow. Look, who forced the election in Gaza that led to the empowerment of Hamas? The President of the United States. Israel said no. The PLO said no. But the United States, in the name of democracy, forced Gazans to have an election which led to putting Hamas into total control. So what do we call that? The banquet of unintended consequences? I guess. Okay, now that we're feeling really, really good, I want to tell you about one of my favorite Israeli newspapers, Yisrael Hayom. Israel Today. Are you a reader of Yisrael Hayom? Have you ever read it? Okay, so there you go. And I knew that answer. And I never read Yisrael Hayom, Israel Today either. Yisrael Hayom had one of the largest circulations in Israel, and it had no need to make money. Why did it have no need to make money? Because Sheldon Adelson owned Yisrael Hayom, and every day he would take his shovel and pour money in. So that was one newspaper in the entire world that had no need to show a profit. No need. And Yisrael Hayom was Bibi Netanyahu's strongest supporter. Anyway, you pick up Yisrael Hayom every day, get it for free, look at it. Boy, it's really there. Nice. It looked good. And it said, Bibi is golden. It is great. Why do I mention Yisrael Hayom? Tuesday, Yisrael Hayom, Israel Today, printed an editorial. And in the editorial, it said to Bibi, lead us to victory and go. This is an earthquake. The strongest newspaper supporter of Bibi win this thing against Hamas and then resign, get out of the way. A major shift in tone of the one newspaper that was most strongly involved in supporting all of Bibi's ambitions. And he thought about that. What's going on? Any thought, any reaction? This is happening in the real world.
I don't think Bibi cares what a newspaper says. I think he has an ego that allows him to not care what anybody, even the strongest supporter, says.
Okay, let's hold on to that. Harv?
Aren't they just reflective of what Israeli society is thinking right now?
Win and then quit. Okay, I don't believe what just happened. This is a strange moment. Effie Katz, are you really here? Of course, he's muted, but we haven't had Effie with us in a long, long time. And what a pleasure. What a pleasure. Hi, Effie. Welcome.
Hello.
Okay, that's the voice. That's the voice. And I ask everyone here to now mark the time before Effie criticizes what I'm doing. Okay? So it's a matter of.
I think it's very wrong of you to talk about me like that.
Okay, there you go. Okay, we're back in business. I don't know what Israelis think. I don't know, given the nature of the parties and how elections are not for the candidate of prime minister, but the elections are elections for parties. And then the number one person in the party, if that party is able to put together a coalition of 61 seats or more, that person becomes prime minister. I'm not altogether. Let me turn to an authentic Israeli from the street. I'm sorry, ma'am, I don't know you. We don't know each other. Would you please move up a little closer so you can be heard? As an average person on the street, what does the average Israeli think about what's going to happen to the government?
The government.
You have to talk loudly, those people.
The microphone is right here. You're okay. I'm on your microphone.
Oh, you're on my microphone.
Yeah.
Okay, here.
No, I can hear it and they can hear me.
Okay, you understand I'm in control of nothing. Go ahead.
I'm sure that the war has concluded, in whichever way it's going to conclude, that Bibi is going to find himself in a lot of trouble, and that the coalition as it is not going to remain. The polling that has been done has shown that over the last couple of months, the parties that are currently in the coalition will no longer remain as such.
Okay, and you know, that's a learned, informed, involved answer, but and I have to leave it with that. That's what we're dealing with. That's what the possibilities are. What about Steve Miller?
With respect to that last comment, in this country, most people stick with their party, and it's the fringes that decide the elections. It sounds like that in Israel, people more freely vote for different parties from election to election. Is that so, and why?
Whereas the United States is a more or less two-party system, sometimes three. In Israel, there can be upwards of 15 parties at any time, and they pop up like mushrooms after a rainstorm. And the parties that were able to gain some seats in the Knesset may or may not manage to get over. There's a percentage, a threshold that the parties have to reach, and some of the parties did not make that threshold the last time, and they are reorganizing in order to do better in the next set of elections. And some of the parties that sprung up and did gain a lot of seats may find themselves in a totally different situation the next time around. Some people see the parties and those who are running them, who are the powerful ones, and not knowing what their stance will be when push comes to shove in government decisions. They're now seeing what they are capable of and what their mindset is and how they react in situations. And I firmly believe that those same people will not be a part of the next coalition, and their parties will not do as well again.
You know, we don't specialize in optimism in this bi-weekly gathering. My goal is to send you back home feeling miserable. And yet Gary has given us a reason for hope. But I'd like to point out that for the first 20 years or more of Israel's existence, the Labor Party, in all of its shapes, forms, and whatever, governed Israel. One Labor Party leader after another, they governed. According to the latest polling, if there would be an election today, the Labor Party may not pass the threshold of having anyone in the Knesset. One of the reasons is that the center of Israeli politics has moved to the right, dragging everybody with them. So that the party that is taking Gary's scenario may be the more likely to be able to form a new coalition is not a left liberal. It's a liberal right party. Understand? So that it's going to be, it is not the socialists are coming back into power. The country has moved politically more to the right. And we're going to see the impact of that. Okay, any other? The next comment, next question. I don't know what's going to change the American rush toward anti-Semitism. I don't even want to give a lecture on that. I want to ask you guys, are any of you with me on this? Do you feel differently? Is it overblown? What is happening in your lives, Susie?
You're muted. Susie, you're muted.
I don't know. Susie, you're muted. I can't hear you.
Mute. Okay, am I good?
Yeah, finally, yes. Half an hour later, yes.
I'm slow on the uptake. Until this week, I didn't realize how ignorant people can be about this anti-Semitism. Here's my quick take on it. First of all, if any of you shop at Bristol Farms, please go to the manager and complain about their display of Hanukkah. It is zilch, zip, zero. They have one thin, like a bookshelf, and they have very expensive things that we wouldn't really need. And anyway, and it was that way last year. And I complained last year. And I called the manager and I called the corporate office saying, I'm a Jewish person in Santa Monica. I'd like to go to Bristol Farms, blah, blah, blah. Why are you not like Ralph's? Why are you not like CVS? Blah, blah, blah. They all have nice Hanukkah stuff. Okay, now I'm cutting to the chase. After I complained in the market, I was standing by the display for a few seconds later, and these two yuppie young women, all dolled up, getting ready to go to a Hanukkah party with their kids. And they were looking for something Hanukkah-ish to buy. And I said, excuse me. I said, are you having trouble finding something? They said, yes. I said, do you recognize that this might be somehow intentional in some kind of a way? And they said, well, we didn't think about it. I said, well, give it a thought. Perhaps, I said, I'm not going to read too much into it. Perhaps the manager needs to know that the whole store is filled with Christmas stuff and there's nothing to represent us. And they really looked at me like, hey, old lady, what are you talking about? This is okay. And I said, do you think it's okay? And they said, well, they just were very low key. Oh, we'll find something here. And I said, do you realize what's going on in our country and in our city and blah, blah, blah? There's so much anti-Semitism. We have our lives to live. We have our own things going on. There you have it. I mean, to me, that was like they weren't going to talk to the man. No way they wanted to talk to the manager. And then that evening, my friend Patty, who some of you know, who is totally Irish Catholic, but so supportive of Israel and our thoughts, she was going to staying over my house and she was going to get something at Bristol Farms. I said, please go to the manager after you look at the display. She thought the display was horrendous and lacking. And she did me the favor that she, in her Irish Catholic way, chewed the manager out. So we have to speak up, but she's my generation, my friend Patty.
Okay. We're going to have to.
Okay.
move forward. Good.
Go to Bristol Farms, everybody, and speak to the manager or call corporate office.
Okay, Rebecca, please.
I have on my phone a coloring app. It's a coloring app by number, and they've always had very good pictures to color for the Jewish holidays, including Rosh Hashanah. There is no picture this year for Hanukkah to color. And I'm thinking that at first I was thinking it was anti-Semitic, but then I was thinking maybe this particular app company, or however you want to label them, just want to stay out of the foray and are just being quiet in order to not bring any unnecessary attention to their app. And maybe that's the same with the store, Susie.
Okay. Do we have other comments about what is your feeling about? My feeling is, as I said, that we are moving toward increasing expressions of anti-Semitism. Am I ahead of you, behind you? Where do you people feel? What do you feel is really going on? Because I tell you, the national organizations, Jewish national organizations, ADL, American Jewish Committee, even the URJ, the Reform Movement, everyone is making a strong statement that we are on a fast track to hell. Do you see it? Do you feel it? Or is it someplace else? What do you think?
My comment is ambivalence. In my neck of the woods, I feel total ambivalence.
Okay, thank you. What about some of the rest of you? How do you feel about that? Brad, I'm going to make it uncomfortable on you, Brad, because that's my job. You are bi-coastal, that is to say you live in Denver and Los Angeles.
Daisy's gone, isn't she?
What do you see? What do you feel? What's going on in your world?
Well, I mean, I see and feel what I read in the newspapers. I mean, personally, I haven't been aggressed in any way. So it's, I of course read about an increase in anti-Semitic incidents. My brother teaches at a Jewish day school. My daughter-in-law works for the Federation. My daughter works for a synagogue in Boulder. I mean, we're all very connected with the Jewish community. Of course, they're all feeling, those that work at these Jewish institutions, they're particularly feeling the stress, the heightened security, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if any of us have individually had any issues, but we're aware of the world around us, and we're very much attentive to it.
Thank you, Steve.
I never would have thought in a million years that in West Los Angeles, someone would track down the head of a political organization and smoke bomb his house and harm a neighbor. I'm in shock. I mean, today I happen to be wearing a Zahal t-shirt. I'm not sure I would wear it in public, and that thought never would have crossed my mind before now. I think it's out there and it's in places we wouldn't expect more and more and more regularly, and it scares me.
Thank you. Effie?
Yes, I think that I haven't personally experienced any, but what I read in the newspapers and see on the TV makes me very, very nervous. And that just as why am I here today? I have a meeting at work always from 11:30 to 1:30. But today they got off, and next week I'll be off, so I'll see you next week.
Super. Well, I'm glad you're here. It's really good to speak with you. Merle?
We recently saw it through our granddaughter, who is just 13, at the Coleman 3-Day in San Diego, where she was wearing her Star of David, and some walker, she was crew, and some walker walked up to her and passed her and said something I don't need to mention on this call, the Jews, F the Jews. And it became a big issue as far as the youth corps, which is crew, and comments that night at a special dinner and program that volunteers are part of at the Coleman 3-Day. So it's, I think everybody's experiencing it in places where they don't expect to experience it. And we're watching out for it as things happen.
Thank you, Sandra.
I'm going to mention a side issue, and that is that at USC there was an incident. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
There was an incident at USC where a professor berated some pro-Hamas protesters, and he was the one that got kicked off campus. That's well known, but the thing is this. A number of us signed a petition in his support and became part of a group that would send emails back and forth and solicit funds for his defense and all that. And what it turned out to be was the only people defending him were really far right people. And every day I'd wake up to these screeds talking about how terrible Biden is and how terrible Obama is. The American Family Institute gave us an hour-long screed by some Fox News person. And do Jews have any friends on the left? I mean, it's just horrifying. I removed myself from that group because much as I support the professor, I didn't want these new friends. They were just weird. But that's
thank you.
Nobody else supporting him.
We are very close to the end of our time. Would anyone else like to share an impression? Because it's going to get worse. I think it's going to get worse as the election moves closer. The United States is in a very, very difficult mood. A lot of anger, a lot of alienation, a lot of taking sides, and very little pressure toward finding what we used to call the middle ground. I don't know what's going to happen with that. Rochelle.
I have concern on both ends, and I'm not sure which way to be more concerned. In terms of the media, emphasizing the degree and the rate of the increase of anti-Semitism, because I feel like by continuing to acknowledge how much anti-Semitism there is, we're almost like promoting it. On the other hand, I feel like we must speak up about it. And I'm not sure if giving it more airtime or less airtime which is of greater benefit. If any, the fact of the matter is it's important to expose it. But the other part of it is not to keep saying how worried Jews are, how afraid they are, how much they're not wearing their Mogen David around their neck, how much they're afraid to be here and there, because so much of the media emphasizes a sense of fear, worry, and creates a self-consciousness that I'm just not sure. Should we be actually highlighting this, headlining it? Or should we be muting it? Are we feeding this fire by the publicity we're giving it, or are we saying no, we're not going to take it lying down? I don't know.
That was a very, very honest comment, and I think that's a good place to end. Thank you, Rochelle. A very honest comment. What the heck do we do? And denial is not one of the options. Folks, we're going to meet again in 2 weeks. Hanukkah will be over. I don't even know what to say in terms of what I hope for. Every day is bringing more difficult news. And I just hope that we stay strong together. We are community. Like this group is an incredible community. And let's plan to see each other in 2 weeks, okay?
What's the date, Stan? Can you give us the date? I'm sorry.
27th.
The 27th is what I have. I think it's a Wednesday, whatever that is, the 27th. Okay, guys, love you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have each
See
other.
you soon. Thank you.
Tonight at Frommans.
If you haven't registered though, please call me or email me if you want to come tonight. Those
Okay.
of you that have registered, don't worry about it. I have your name down.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.